If you watch the movie The Da Vinci Code, you'll remember that the Knights Templar were allegedly set up by a secret society, a clandestine organization called the Priory of Sion. And this organization was set up, so we're told in the movie, to protect the secret bloodline of Jesus Christ. That is, the descendants of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Now, it may come as a surprise to you to know that this theory, the Priory of Sion, has been knocking around for a while, since the 1950s, in fact, but not before then, because it was completely invented by a group of French intellectuals who were a bit bored, and they basically concocted this story that the Knights Templar were set up by an organization called the Priory of Sion. They even forged documents to try and prove that this organization existed hundreds of years ago. And they claimed that the Priory of Sion was led by people like Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci. But the whole thing was a fraud. It was completely untrue. They even put fake documents into the National Library in France to try and con people into believing that this was the case. The theory was then repeated by three authors who wrote a book in the 1980s called Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And then we have Dan Brown, who came along in the early 2000s, who developed the theory a little more in his novel, The Da Vinci Code, which was always intended to be a work of fiction. Nevertheless, the authors from the 1980s who wrote Holy Blood, Holy Grail then sued Dan Brown for alleged plagiarism. The case was thrown out of court. Now, if you want to know more about the whole story of the Priory of Sion and this incredible fraud, this fake story about the origins of the Knights Templar, then buy my new book, or pre-order it rather, Downfall of the Templars, Guilty of Diabolic Magic. The link is in my profile. Buy it today. It's a fascinating story about a fraud perpetrated on the public about the origins of the Knights Templar.